ENTJ is going to work on that FI first of all, but then once that FI becomes a little more in tune and balanced, then that SI, that recognition of the SI perhaps is the next step. Welcome back to the ENTJ podcast. We've got Coach B back again, and today we're talking about SI. The world around us is full of SI and SE users. Today we want to talk a little bit about what an ENTJ can do to integrate themselves into that world.
One of my New Year's resolutions is to kind of ramp up my SI game again. I still live in a very SI and SE dominated family, extended family culture, etc. Louisiana, they call it the sportsman's paradise. Almost everybody has a boat, they hunt, they fish, they know how to fix pretty much anything. Honestly speaking, growing up, I did not have that level of SE-ness, extroverted sensing skills. I always felt a little dumb.
I mean, you can play on the football field. You can go out and maybe go hunting or something like that. You can enjoy it for some time, but you're not going to be the one who's leading that space. And the ENTJ really leads that more abstract space, that more let's bring a vision forward into reality space. And so you can feel a little bit out of place and maybe not as confident as you would like.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly how it landed for me. And at the time, I kind of beat myself up. That's what we do when we're young. We don't understand cognitive functions. Now you can look back on, you can kind of see it, that SE child was trying to play in an SE dom environment. When I first started working in the space program, there were a lot of legends that we leaned on. They had a term way back then before I started called poets and plumbers. Well, really what it was is the plumbers, and of course there's a whole lot more to it than that, were kind of the SI doms. They knew how to follow directions, stay patient. They knew how to assemble mechanical things real easy by nature. They're kind of like a plumber. And then there were the poets. And the poets were more the artistic, think outside the box, innovative type of minds. Poets and plumbers kind of gave us some language, the sensor world versus the intuitive world.
There'll be this process the SI dominants have figured out. And then I plug that into my NI framework and I sort of project it into the future and go, I don't think it's going to work. And I think it's going to look like this.
I'll use another term here from back in my space program days, shelf life. We were going from deploying small payloads, roughly the size of maybe a Volkswagen Bug vehicle, and retrieving them. And then we moved through a period of phase where we're docking and rendezvousing with the Mir space station and then the International Space Station. Well, this is a novel environment. You have tons of procedures, tons of guidelines, tons of simulations, tons of people who are familiar, and it has quote unquote shelf life. And in order to deviate from that, you better have something very compelling to show the SI dominated world. This is a need to change. The way we've done things in the past made complete sense, and I completely honor it, and I benefited from it and participated in it. We need to turn the dial now. Shelf life. It's not going to necessarily work because we're facing something that's novel now.
What I'm really taking from that is validating the SI, validating the past. Just this week, we were brainstorming in a middle management meeting, and one of the heavy SI users was worrying about detail after detail to the point where it kind of became a little overwhelming. And me as an ENTJ just wanted to shut it down, be like, hey, it'll be fine. People will figure this out. Like, this doesn't need to be planned. We'll adapt within the situation. But then it became confrontational. Somehow I had an insight just to value the importance of the small details. You can often be, as an ENTJ, an affront to those tried and true ideas. If you just try to gloss over how people might feel and just bulldoze this new idea, this new insight, this way of doing things, you're going to have a bad time. People aren't going to get on board with what you're trying to do. I know I had an experience where I just I was pretty young, went straight to my boss and I said, you need to change this, you need to do this. And I literally just started working in this work environment too. And they just kind of looked at me like, who is this jerk? Who is this arrogant guy who thinks he knows it all? And every single one of my ideas within a 4-year time frame were implemented because they did need to change. But if I didn't even take the time to understand why before I threw out this new idea, then, well, what place did I really have to suggest it?
Yeah, I really like what you said there. And what really jumps out at me is validating the ways that we got to today. Okay. And the other thing is having humility as part of your approach. There's validity, humility, and compelling ideas. I would come up with one portion humility, one portion validating, and two portions of having compelling reasons why you should change things. Because if somebody is very comfortable with the ways of the past, that's what it's going to take to get their ear and their cooperation. And so bridge the gap, find a way to talk their language, because otherwise it's probably going to land on deaf ears, or it's only going to get implemented when it's obvious to everybody, and that might be too late in some regards.
Hmm. I notice you've written here in the notes, take away their bullets before they can defeat you with them. That sounds really interesting. What's that about?
Okay, so early in my career, there's a mentor in our group, our technical group, and I was really frustrated with all the different quality assurance steps we had to go to before we got a technique implemented. And I went to his office and I'm like, how does anything get done around here? I got to brief 10 people before we ever even have me present this. And he went through to explain to me the safety culture, the way things are, and the process and hierarchy and all those things that I was frustrated with, because I was just wanting to, hey, here's a great idea, let's go do it. Well, and I learned that in order to get something implemented, you had to anticipate. And we have this anticipatory skill, this NI, this projecting, this future casting, right? Strategic big picture mindset. So look at the big picture, look at the future, anticipate all the things that are going to be obstructions. And then this one big technique that I presented, I started off the presentations and I basically said, here's all the reasons why we shouldn't do this. And then I ended it with, here's all the more reasons why we should. And it got approved. It's to take away their bullets before they can shoot them at me.
I like your strategy there. I often do it the opposite way around. I start with my compelling strategy. I anticipate what they're going to fire back, and then I defeat. Bang, 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 bang. And I do it almost very aggressively. You know, just personally reflecting, I actually feel a little scared, actually, that maybe not scared, I'm just or frustrated. I almost project a little bit of anger towards these people because I'm almost expecting that they're going to shut down my idea. And so when I present it, I'm presenting it with such force. What you're talking about now is going to be very helpful for me, where I sit back, I validate those details first. I recognize their importance. Speak the language as you're talking about. I think that's going to really be helpful for me. Trivia, puzzles, surviving holidays with senses.
I'd rather have an abstract philosophical conversation about now, but my reality is I need to play a puzzle. I need to play Trivial Pursuit. So maybe you could view it this way, reframe it, right? Pull out the old mindset. Say, wow, this is an opportunity for me to work on my body language and my humility. Maybe you do it for 20 minutes. Maybe you play 1 hour session of putting a puzzle together. That's valuable to them. These are people you care about.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to trying to pull conversations into the abstract constantly. And people getting frustrated with that, or people thinking that it's arguing sometimes because you're just going back and forth with ideas. And puzzles. It's hard to imagine an ENTJ loving puzzles. Like, there's nothing more really boring and waste of time than putting together a puzzle where you know what the picture looks like anyway. It's like, what? Like, it's not a surprise.
It's like, what's the point? What's the point? But you know what? The point is, I'm building my patience. I'm building my detail orientation. I'm building my capacity to stay organized and in the moment. These are valuable assets in the world. Reframe it. Go with it. Show some humility and develop some skills in the process. We talked before about the Silver Snoopy effect and about getting accomplishment and feeling so compelled to get so many grand things done. Well, guess what? You're going to burn out at some point. Pressing the pedal to the metal all the time, accomplishing, and you're stuck in your ego, you're not caring and feeding for yourself. If I actually schedule into my schedule 20-minute walk in the woods, the way the brain works is it needs some off time to consolidate information. Instead of working till 2:30 in the morning on a project, Recognize that between 10 and 2 in the morning, centered around the true midnight, that's when your body does most of its healing. I'm not talking from an expert. This is, things I've heard, but I believe them. And I find that in my life, whenever I've gone to sleep and maximized that 4-hour period and gotten as close to 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep as I can, I'm better off for it.
That is a lesson that I learn the hard way and then constantly forget and then need to learn it again. The solution is so clear and so obvious. It's, setting those routines into your life where you do rest and you see rest as valuable, as productive, because as you said, it's going to increase your capacity in the future to run at that hyper efficient ENTJ mode. And if I'd only taken that advice, and if I'd only actually built these positive routines into my life, then I'd probably be at an even greater place today. A lot of personality types as well can take that on, but I think SI, our blind spot, it's something we really need to learn.
A lot of times people see ENTJs and they see, oh boy, very orderly. But you know what? Behind the curtain, there's maybe not so much orderliness. But what I'm doing is I'm taking...
That's my box.
Here you go. You can't spreadsheet in how this mental health break, this walk in the woods is going to help you. It's a leap of faith, but it's wise. One of the comments that you made, validating other people that you're interfacing with whenever you're in a sea of sensors, and that's your reality. Try to find a way to play on their terms as much as you can. Realize in the process you're developing skill sets you didn't have before. You're also making them feel heard and seen and valued. And I don't think you can go wrong when you do all that. It might be difficult, but you're capable.